Hey guys, welcome back to the video. I'm Luke, an ACA qualified accountant, having passed all 15 of the ACA exams at the first attempt while studying at a Big Four firm. And after my time at the Big Four, I transitioned into a career in investment banking, and I now spend my days helping current candidates smash their exams. And in today's video, we're going to discuss the certificate level accounting exam. We're going to discuss some tips and some advice to help you get through that paper. And accounting is likely going to be one of the first exams you sit on your ACA journey, if not the first. So you're likely going to be brand new to the way ICAEW exams look, how they're tested, what the exam day looks like, how challenging the exams are, and what the time pressures are like. And if you have no accounting experience whatsoever going into this exam, you're going to find this paper pretty challenging. I remember when I studied it, it was a bit of a shock to the system quite how difficult this exam is. And I know a lot of other candidates feel the same. Personally, I had absolutely no accounting experience whatsoever. I'd only studied a maths degree, so I had no idea what I was getting myself in for. And yeah, this exam is pretty demanding, pretty challenging. There's a saying that goes that learning accounting is like learning a brand new language. And I couldn't really agree more with this statement. The first time you go through the ICAEW accounting workbook, a lot of the material is going to feel pretty alien and pretty confusing. It's going to be a big learning curve getting ready for this exam. It's going to require a lot of studying and a lot of question practice. Accounting has the lowest pass rate of any ACA exam on the syllabus. The current pass rate level is around 70%, so 70% of candidates pass this exam and around 30% of those that sit it fail. And that's far lower than any other exam. And the reason why accounting has such a low pass rate is because a lot of candidates think that the exam's going to be quite straightforward. You know, it's the first exam on the qualification. It presents itself as an introductory module. So most people think that it's going to be super easy. I can wing it. I can study it in a couple of evenings and I'll be fine. But that's simply not the case. This exam is very, very challenging. Please, whatever you do, do not underestimate this exam. You're going to need to put in the work to secure the pass. And in terms of how the exam is structured, you're presented with 25 questions, 24 of which are multi-choice questions, and you're also given one long-form scenario-based question. And for the scenario-based question, you'll be given extracts from a financial statement and you'll be asked to prepare a full income statement or balance sheet or cash flow statement. The 24 multi-choice questions make up around 60% of the paper, and the scenario-based question makes up 40% of the exam. In this video, I'm going to discuss some tips and some advice to help focus your revision strategy, to help make you feel much more prepared for your sitting. So by the time you walk into the exam, you're feeling much more confident about how you're going to perform on exam day. And I'm also going to spend a few minutes at the end of the video discussing what the exam day is going to look like. I know for a lot of you, this is going to be your first attempt at an ACA exam, so you're not really sure what the whole process looks like. So we'll discuss things like what the day is going to involve, what you need to bring, where you need to go, how you get your results, etc. Okay, let's get started. So my first piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the accounting exam is that you need to decide on an exam strategy ahead of the exam day. So like I said in the intro, the accounting exam is divided into two distinct sections. You have 24 multi-choice questions, which make up 60% of the exam, and you have one long-form scenario-based question, which makes up 40%. Which question set are you going to attack first? Are you going to attempt the scenario-based question first, or are you going to attack the multi-choice questions first? And this is quite an important decision to make because in the exam, you're going to be presented with the scenario-based question first. That is question number 1 in the exam, and then the multi-choice questions are questions 2 to 25. But just because the scenario-based question comes first does not mean that you necessarily have to answer that question first. I personally always recommend starting with the multi-choice questions because they make up the bigger weighting of the exam. They're 60%, whereas the scenario-based question is only 40%. What you typically find is candidates that start by attacking the scenario-based question often overrun, and this is the main reason why candidates fail. They spend way too much time answering the scenario-based question and then run out of time for all the multi-choice questions. And the risk is running out of time and not answering all the questions and leaving marks on the table. If you manage to answer every single question on the exam paper, you stand a much better chance of passing. If you leave anything unanswered, your probability of failing increases dramatically. And what I find is it's far easier to manage your time if you start with the multi-choice questions and then transition on to the scenario-based question once you finish. You need to decide on an exam strategy before you walk into the exam. It's not a decision you want to have to think about 5 minutes into an accounting exam, because the exam is stressful enough. You want to make a plan up front and stick to it. Decide on your exam strategy in advance. If you're doing the MCQs first, great, stick to that plan. Don't deviate on exam day. Deviating from your plan will only create additional stress and put you into a state of panic. Having a clear plan in place will help optimize your own performance. And after you've done your first few mock exams, you'll get a bit of a feel for what strategy is best for you. My second piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the accounting certificate level exam is to practice mocks under timed exam conditions. The exam lasts 90 minutes and it is an extremely time-pressured exam. 90 minutes may sound like a long time, but trust me, you're going to wish this exam was 2.5, 3 hours. It's that time-pressured. All ACA exams are highly time-pressured, but this is one of the worst for needing to get everything done within the 90 minutes. It's an incredibly stressful exam, so please prepare yourself for that. 25 questions may not sound like a lot, but trust me, when you're in the exam, you're going to need every second of that 90 minutes. Practicing mock exams is the best way to help develop and hone your time management skills. I would say you should aim to do at least 2 mock exams before you walk into the exam on exam day. I think that's a healthy number of mocks. The number one reason why candidates fail the accounting exam is because they've run out of time and they failed to address all of the questions within the 90 minutes. They've left 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever questions left unanswered. They may have spent too much time on the scenario-based question. They may have spent too much time on the multi-choice questions. It really doesn't matter. You have to be really strict with your time management. If you don't know something, you don't know an answer to a question, flag it in the software and just move on. You can't sit and spend 10, 15 minutes staring at one question, trying to solve it. If you do flag a question in the software, you can come back to it at the end of the exam. So read a question. If you don't know the answer to it, flag it and then just move on straight away. Don't spend time trying to work something out where you're not completely confident, because there will be questions later on in the exam which you will be confident with and you will be able to answer. If you get to the end of the exam and you've answered all 25 questions, you're already in a really strong position to pass this exam. Like I said, the majority of candidates that fail it are those that haven't answered all the questions. So even if you're not completely confident with the material, just try and answer every single question. My third piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the ACA certificate level accounting exam is to understand the dead click concept. The dead click concept is fundamental to the entire accounting exam. Pretty much everything that the syllabus covers is underpinned by the dead click concept. It's so important. And what the dead click concept means is that an entry on one side of the financial statements needs to be counterbalanced by an entry on the other side. So a debit entry that is recognised as an expense, an asset or a drawing must be counterbalanced by an equal credit entry, which is recognised as a liability, income or capital. Without it, the statement of financial position just won't balance. One of my biggest mistakes when I studied accounting, both at the certificate level and at the professional and advanced levels, was not learning dead click early enough. I found myself trying to scramble to understand it 1 or 2 evenings before the exam. If you can get your head around the concept early, you're going to have an unfair advantage over other candidates, because it is such a fundamental and important concept which underpins so much of the technical content that you're going to come across in the syllabus. Whenever you're faced with making an accounting adjustment in a multi-choice question or in a scenario-based question, remember that there are 2 sides to every adjustment. If you make just a one-sided adjustment, then what you're doing is guaranteed to be wrong. So remember, if you need to make an adjustment, there's always 2 sides to the adjustment. That's the crux of dead click. The accounting exam is built around dead click, so dedicate a lot of time to it in your revision. And I would argue if you can gain a relatively deep understanding of dead click going into your accounting exam, you stand a very good chance of passing it. My next piece of advice when it comes to doing well in the certificate level accounting exam is to put in the work. Accounting is by far the hardest certificate level exam you're going to face. There is a lot of really challenging material that you need to get through, and you're going to need to spend a lot of time going through the workbook, practicing questions and understanding all of the concepts that come up in the syllabus, because this is not an exam that you can wing. You have to know and understand the material to do well. There are some ACA exams where I recommend candidates spend less time in the workbook and more time attacking question banks and questions and mock exams. This is not one of those exams. This is a paper where you need to understand everything that's going on in the workbook. All of the material that's covered in the syllabus is super important. Attacking questions alone is not going to get you through this exam. You need to understand the principles, the accounting frameworks. To pass the exam, you need to have a fundamental understanding of accounting, because the questions in the exam aren't necessarily going to look like the questions in the question bank. They're going to be different. I remember when I sat my exam, the questions in the exam on exam day felt very different to what I'd seen in the question bank. The examiners are clearly trying to test the candidate's core knowledge and catch out anyone that's just rote learn answers from the question bank. If you have no accounting experience going into this exam, it's going to be really tough. But I promise you, this will be by far the most painful ACA certificate level exam you're going to do. Give yourself enough time to study, give yourself enough time to learn the concepts and apply them through question practice. The ICAEW's recommendation is to do the entire question bank twice. I personally recommend you do it 2 or even 3 times. If you are worried or stressed about the accounting paper, please don't. Everyone feels that way. But you do need to put in significant amounts of work to be able to pass the exam. That is the one thing that I can guarantee. You may find that things suddenly click about 24, 48 hours before your exam sitting. That's kind of what happened for me. I was completely lost pretty much all of the study phase, but then just gradually, a day or 2 before the exam, things started to click. So you may feel the same, you may not, but if you do put in the work, you do stand a really good chance of passing this exam. My next piece of advice when it comes to doing well in accounting is to find a system of balancing studying with client work that works for you. I'm assuming most of you guys that are studying towards accounting are balancing your qualification and your studies with a full-time job and client responsibilities. This is probably the first time in your life that you're balancing a demanding 9-to-5 job like accounting, audit, finance, etc., with a really challenging professional qualification. So you need to find a system of balancing work and study that's optimal for you and your life. That might mean you do your studying in the morning before you go to work and then have your evenings off to relax. But it may be the opposite. You may want to work during the day and then do your studying in the evening. It doesn't really matter how you structure it, what way you do it, but you need to find a system that is optimal for you and ensures that you're getting adequate study time in. It's important to get into a rhythm, particularly a week or 2 before the exam. You may need to study on the weekend, you may need to study in your mornings or the evenings. Whatever works best for you, you need to carve out that time which is dedicated towards your ACA qualification. You want to have been through the workbook at least once. You want to have done end of chapter questions, question bank 2 or 3 times, and you want to have done mock exam, at least 2 mock exam papers to time. So you know that once you've walked out of the real exam, you feel like you've given it everything you have, you've given it your best shot, and what will be will be. My next piece of advice when it comes to the certificate level accounting exam is to not be complacent if you have an accounting degree or an accounting A-level. I spent a lot of time in this video giving advice to candidates that are brand new to accounting, candidates that have never seen accounting before, have never studied it in the past. But I also want to give some advice to candidates that have studied accounting before and have got accounting degrees and accounting experience, because I know a hell of a lot of candidates that have first-class degrees in accounting, first-class degrees in finance, but who still went on to fail this exam because they didn't put in the requisite amount of work. This is the second main reason behind why candidates fail accounting. It's complacency. The number of candidates that fail this introductory module to accounting is mind-blowing. The way this exam is structured means that even those that have top accounting degrees often run into trouble because the exam is so time pressured. If you're too relaxed going into the exam or fail to acknowledge the time pressures, you can easily run into trouble and fail this exam. regardless of how much accounting experience you have, you can fail this exam if you haven't done the requisite amount of studying, if you haven't done question bank practice, if you haven't done mock exams to time. If you're underprepared, I can guarantee that there's a high chance that you're going to fail. Take the exam seriously, do enough practice, do exams to time, and just get ready, because there's no margin for error in this paper. Cool, so that's the accounting exam in terms of content and ways that you can prepare for it. I now want to spend a minute or two discussing some of the administrative points in terms of what the actual exam day is going to look like, what you need to do, where you need to go, what you need to bring, because I appreciate for a lot of you this is going to be your first time going into an ACA exam. Not really that many people tell you what you need to do on exam day. And I think that's just as important as preparing for the technical aspects of the exam. So in terms of things you need to bring, I would take 2 forms of ID. You only need to bring one, but if you don't take any ID, you will be refused entry. I see this happen all the time. So I always take 2 as a backup, just in case you lose one on the train or you do accidentally forget one and leave one at home. Always aim to take 2 forms of ID. This is the most important thing to remember on exam day. No ID equals no entry. This is not an empty threat. I've seen it happen on countless occasions. People prepare long and hard for these exams and then they just forget to take their ID. So take a passport, take a driving license, any ID card, but make sure you take multiple forms, because if you do lose one on the way, at least you have a backup and you'll get into your exam. Take a calculator, Casios are fine. Get there early so you can get registered. The registration process can sometimes take a little while, so do get there early so you can get registered and get comfortable in the exam centre. It will be computer based, so you'll be sitting the exam in a computer test centre, similar to what I would describe as like a driving test centre. There's just loads of computers lined up in a room and you'll have sort of borders up in between you and the next candidate so you can't see the other person's screen. If you've ever done your driving theory test, you'll know what I mean. And when you get into the room, you'll be given your own unique key code to enter into the computer, and then you can start your exam. The exam is 90 minutes. You'll be undertaking it on a piece of software, which you can practice with on the ICAEW website. The exam will have a countdown clock in the top corner of the screen, so you can see exactly how much time you've got left. The software is very easy to use, so don't worry too much about that. You'll be given a tutorial before the exam actually starts, so you get used to it and get used to the functionality. You can flag any questions that you don't know and can come back to at the end, and you can skip around, so you can skip to from question 2 to 10, from 10 to 15, etc. at any moment. You don't need to necessarily go in chronological order. And when the countdown timer reaches 0, the computer just shuts down by itself, so you can't go beyond the 90 minutes. You'll be given some scrap paper to write notes on and do workings on if you've got to answer a quantitative question, so that's super helpful. You don't need to bring anything like that in yourself. You'll be provided with scrap paper and pens, and you usually get your results within 24 hours of the sitting. So usually by the next morning, you'll wake up and have your results emailed to you, or you can log in into the ICAEW portal to obtain your results. So those are some tips to help you ace the certificate level accounting exam. I hope it was helpful. Key things to focus on are time management. The exam is super time pressured, so do bear that in mind when you go into the exam. Do lots of practice with mock exams under time conditions to get used to that. Do a lot of question practice. Make sure you're comfortable with both types of questions and build out a structure. This is the first of 15 exams. You want to get used to studying and balancing studying with your client work, because you have to do it for this exam, but this is going to become a recurring theme over the next 3 or 4 years of your life. So do get into the flow of balancing studying with client work. If you have any questions regarding the accounting exam, the certificate level, or the ACA qualification as a whole, please feel free to reach out. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions. I'm making tons of videos regarding the ACA, and I'm making courses for each of the 15 exams. So please feel free to come along on that journey and subscribe to the channel. If you've got the exam coming up, I wish you the best of luck for it. You're going to absolutely smash it, and I'll see you guys in the next video.